Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Mark. I'm 36 years old, a long-haul truck driver from Tacoma, Washington. My days are filled with highways, diesel fumes, and truck stop meals. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. And until recently, I thought that honesty, quiet sacrifice, would eventually be seen. Valued. Especially by my family. But I was wrong. Growing up, I always felt like the invisible son. My father, John, a retired Navy officer turned insurance manager, always favored my younger brother, Aaron. Aaron, the golden child. The finance guy with the tailored suits, the LinkedIn accolades, the expensive condo in Seattle. And me? Just Mark. A trucker with oil-stained hands and no college degree. But none of that ever mattered to my mom. My mother, Lorraine, was the only person in that house who made me feel like I mattered. When Dad would go on his rants about my wasted potential, Mom would slip into my room later and just sit quietly, sometimes stroking my hair like she used to when I was a kid. She never tried to convince me that Dad was right. She just made me feel seen. She was the anchor in the storm I grew up in. Soft-spoken, resilient, and heartbreakingly kind, even to the people who broke her. When she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer last year, I dropped everything. I requested local-only halls so I could be there every day. I took her to her chemo sessions. I changed her dressings. I made her soup. I watched as the strongest woman I knew wasted away, bone by bone, breath by breath. Meanwhile, Dad would stroll in once a week, hand her a half-wilted bouquet, and stare at the wall like he was waiting for a dentist appointment to end. Aaron came even less. He'd pop in, take a selfie with her looking like a damn ghost, and post it with captions like, "Tough day, stay strong, Mom." Then he'd vanish into some corporate gala or weekend ski trip. But Mom noticed. She always noticed. One night, after her worst chemo session yet, she squeezed my hand and said, "Mark, when I'm gone, remember, being loved quietly is still being loved truly. And I've never loved anyone more than I love you." I cried that night. The kind of crying where your whole body shakes, but you don't make a sound. Because I knew, deep down, I was losing her. And worse, I was the only one who seemed to care. Then came the moment that flipped everything. It was a gray December afternoon. I stepped outside the hospital to catch my breath. That's when I heard Dad and Aaron by the parking garage, talking like they were planning a vacation. "She won't make it past January," Dad muttered. "But the insurance is solid. 1.2 million, and it's all coming to me. Mark doesn't need a cent." Aaron chuckled. "Let him play nurse. He's too dumb to ask questions." I swear, I stopped breathing. I stood frozen, the winter air stabbing my lungs. Did I just hear my father, the man who married my mother, talk about her death like it was a damn payday? And Aaron, my brother, laughing like I was the family fool? I wanted to confront them. Scream. Punch walls. Something. But I couldn't. Not yet. I turned around and went back inside, my chest hollow. Mom was asleep, her breathing shallow. I sat beside her, gripping her frail hand. That night, something in me shifted. This wasn't just grief anymore. It was betrayal. And I wasn't going to let it end like this. To be continued in part 2, despair. I didn't sleep that night. I parked my rig on the edge of a truck stop just off I-5, a place I usually found comfort in, buzzing vending machines, humming trailers, CB radios echoing into the void. But not that night. I just sat there, staring at the cassette recorder Mom had handed me the week before. An old-school handheld thing, wrapped in a worn handkerchief like it carried treasure. She'd said, "Play it after I'm gone, Mark. When everyone is there." Back then, I thought she meant foreclosure. Maybe a letter to the family, a thank you. But after what I'd heard outside the hospital parking garage, I knew this tape was more than just goodbye. It was ammunition. And suddenly, that scared me more than anything. The next few weeks crawled by like a funeral march. Mom's condition worsened fast. Her hair was nearly gone. Her weight plummeted. But she never stopped asking if I'd eaten, if I was sleeping, if the truck needed repairs. She was slipping away, and still, she was mothering me. Aaron. 2 visits. One with a new girlfriend who posted selfies from the hospital. Stay strong, Queen, she'd captioned it. Dad. He stopped visiting entirely after Christmas. Said the hospital was too depressing. I stayed. Through every bed bath, every scream of pain when the morphine wore off, every sleepless night where I sat by her and whispered stories about the highways I used to drive just to keep her awake and tethered to this world. Then came the coma. She stopped speaking one morning, just didn't wake up. The doctor said her time was near, that we should call family. I texted Aaron. He didn't reply until the next evening. Let me know when it's official. Official. Like it was a business deal. Dad didn't answer at all. Not until the nurse called him directly, and even then, he just muttered, all right, like she'd told him a dinner reservation was cancelled. When Mom passed, the sky outside the hospital window was lit with morning gold. I held her hand, kissed her forehead, and whispered, you did everything right, Mom. Everything. But what broke me wasn't her silence, it was Dad's. I called him that morning. She's gone, I said, barely holding it together. He just sighed and said, okay. I'll make the funeral arrangements. No, I'm sorry. No, are you okay? Just cold, procedural efficiency, like he was planning a board meeting. Then came the final blow, I asked if I could speak at her service. He scoffed. Speak? What are you going to say, Mark? Talk about oil changes and truck stops. Don't embarrass the family. I'll handle the eulogy. I hung up before I could scream. Aaron sent a group text, looking forward to giving Mom a classy send-off. Let's keep it dignified, guys. Dignified? These men wouldn't recognize dignity if it slapped them across the face. Still, I kept quiet. I respected my mother too much to explode now. I clutched that cassette recorder tighter than ever. I hadn't listened yet. I didn't need to. I trusted her. And then, out of nowhere, a text lit up my phone. Mark, meet me tomorrow at 8 a.m. before the funeral. Evelyn. Evelyn. Mom's lawyer. Quiet, serious, sharp as a scalpel. She'd visited Mom a few times during her last weeks, but I never asked why. I figured it was about insurance or paperwork. Now I knew better. I showed up to the cafe the next morning, running on fumes and fury. Evelyn was already there, black suit, black coffee, a manila envelope sitting in front of her like it held a loaded gun. She slid it toward me. This is your mother's new will. Notarized 3 weeks ago. Everything changed, Mark. She left it all to you. I blinked. What? She knew what John and Aaron were planning. She heard them in the hallway one day when they thought she was asleep. She came to me the next morning. Said she wanted to rewrite everything. I sat there, numb, as she walked me through it. The house? Half mine. The joint bank account? Half mine. The life insurance, $1.2 million. All mine. She knew they wouldn't let you speak at her funeral, Evelyn added. So she prepared a statement to be read in case that happened. You're holding it. She nodded at the recorder in my jacket. I felt like I couldn't breathe. She told me, Evelyn continued, that she wanted the truth to be heard. Even if it had to be played from beyond the grave. I looked down at the recorder again. It felt heavier now. I left the cafe, heart pounding, head spinning. Dad had turned Mom's death into a performance. Erin had reduced her to an Instagram post. But Mom? She'd spent her final energy making sure her voice couldn't be silenced. Not by Dad. Not by Erin. Not by anyone. And suddenly, all my grief turned into something else. Resolve. They weren't ready. But I was. To be continued in Part 3, Secret Discovery. I walked into the church that morning carrying a storm in my chest. The sun hadn't fully risen, but the pews were already filling. Dad had gone all out, rose gold casket, white lilies everywhere, a printed program with a 5-paragraph, loving tribute signed by him and Erin. I scanned the crowd, distant cousins in pearls, Dad's co-workers shaking hands like they were at a networking event, and Erin, front and center, pretending his world had shattered. He even dabbed his eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. The kind of grief you buy at Nordstrom. I sat in the back, the recorder in my pocket like a secret weapon. Evelyn was seated just behind me. She gave me a subtle nod. She knew the plan. Dad stood at the front, greeting people, telling them how hard it had been. 36 years, he said over and over, like he deserved a medal. Not once did he mention the fact he hadn't seen her in her final week. That he hadn't held her hand as her breath slowed. That he had once referred to her death as relief, financially. Erin hovered near the casket, touching the rim like it was a stage prop. He posed beside it for a photo with one of Mom's old friends. I nearly vomited. Then it was time. The service began with a hymn, a prayer, and then Dad approached the podium. He adjusted the microphone, cleared his throat, and launched into the most rehearsed speech I've ever heard in my life. She was the light of our family, he said solemnly. A mother, a wife, a pillar of strength. I stared at him, fury bubbling beneath my skin. He spoke about how they met in college. How they built a home together. How they faced every storm hand in hand. Lie. He spoke of her bravery. Her quiet grace in the final days. How, as a family, we all supported her. Lie. 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 I gripped the wooden pew in front of me so hard I thought it might splinter. Evelyn reached over and lightly touched my elbow. It was almost time. Dad concluded his speech with a flourish, pretending to choke back tears. The audience clapped. Clapped. Like this was a show. I stood. All eyes turned toward me. Some smiled politely. Others whispered, likely thinking, that's the older son. The one who drives trucks. I walked toward the podium, but before I reached it, Dad stepped in front of me. What are you doing, Mark? He hissed, smile still plastered for the audience. This isn't your moment. I'm speaking, I said, trying to keep my voice even. No, you're not. He gripped my arm. Don't embarrass this family. Let go. Sit down. His voice was quiet, but venomous. Erin joined him, standing just behind like a bodyguard. Come on, man, he whispered. Let Dad handle this. This isn't your scene. I looked at them, two men who had abandoned her, disrespected her, then had the nerve to control her memorial. And I pulled the recorder from my jacket. Since I'm not allowed to speak, I said, raising my voice loud enough to carry, I'll let Mom do it. Gasps echoed. Dad's face dropped. Erin paled. What are you doing? Dad barked. But I was already walking to the AV table. I plugged the recorder into the sound system. It took only a second, but it felt like a century. Then I hit play. And the church went still. Hello, came my mother's voice, frail but unmistakable. This is Lorraine Miller. If you're hearing this, it means I've passed. And I need to tell the truth. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I looked over and saw Dad's hand clench the back of a pew. Aaron's lips parted slightly, his fake grief vanishing. Mom's voice continued, steady now, like she was in the room. I was married to John for 36 years. And for most of those years, I endured silence. I endured betrayal. I endured being invisible in my own home. People gasped. Someone near the front dropped a program. I want everyone to know that my son Mark was the one who stayed by my side. Not John. Not Aaron. Just Mark. He fed me, bathed me, cried with me, and gave me peace in my last days. A sob broke from the left side of the church. I didn't look to see who. John, she said next. You said I was a burden. You plotted my life insurance before I was even gone. You called me dead weight. You lied to our friends. You weren't my husband in the end. You were a man I once knew. Dad's face twisted in rage. He rushed forward, hand raised like he might unplug the machine. Evelyn stood. If you touch that recorder, I'll have you removed. People turned. Whispers turned to audible outrage. Mom wasn't finished. Aaron, her voice said. You loved your image more than your mother. You took selfies by my hospital bed. You showed up when the camera was on, and disappeared when I needed you. Aaron visibly wilted. He stared at the floor. But Mark, her voice softened, Mark never once abandoned me. Even when I pushed him away, he stayed. That's why I changed my will. Everything I have goes to him. The money, the house, the life insurance. I leave nothing to those who left me. A full silence fell. Dead silence. Dad lunged at the AV table, red-faced, furious. You lying little, this is fraud. But Evelyn was already beside me, holding a folder. She raised it. This, she said, her voice calm, is a legally binding will, notarized by 2 witnesses. Lorraine Miller's estate and life insurance have been lawfully reassigned to Mark Miller. Any attempts to challenge it will be laughed out of court. A pause. Then, like thunder breaking across a stormy sky, the crowd erupted, shouts, gasps, a woman crying into her scarf. Uncle Ray, Mom's brother, stood and pointed at Dad. You disgrace her memory, he growled. Dad stepped back, shaking. Aaron sat down hard on the front pew, mouth slack, broken. I stood, numb. Staring ahead. Not triumphant. Not even angry anymore. Just, heard. Mom had spoken. And her words were louder than they had ever let me be. To be continued in Part 4, Revenge Planning. The church was still buzzing when I stepped outside. People didn't know what to say, some looked at me with pity, others with something close to awe. A few even clapped me on the back, whispering things like, your mom was brave, or, she raised a good man. But I wasn't listening. I was already planning what came next. Dad and Aaron weren't just humiliated. They were furious. And if I knew them at all, I knew they wouldn't accept this outcome quietly. Especially not Dad. Sure enough, the very next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. You think this is over? Dad's voice came through, sharp and cold. You think a tape and a document can undo 30 years of family legacy? I think Mom did what was right, I said calmly. You manipulated her. You poisoned her mind. She was sick, barely lucid. This won't hold up. Click. No goodbye. No closure. Just a threat. But I wasn't scared. I had Evelyn. And more importantly, I had Mom's words, words that, now public, couldn't be taken back. That night, I sat alone in the house Mom left me. It was quiet. Too quiet. The same house where I grew up hearing Dad's footsteps thundering down the hallway, his voice barking commands at Mom. Where Aaron and I used to fight over who got the bigger bedroom. Where I'd once sat with Mom in the kitchen while she stirred cookie dough and hummed to herself. Now it was mine. Half of it was technically still Dad's, but the will gave me the option to buy him out. Evelyn had already started the paperwork. He needed cash, fast. So I made him an offer, $250,000 for his half of the property. He refused. At first. Then 2 days later, Aaron called. "You ruined everything, Mark," he spat. "Dad can't afford to pay estate taxes. We need that buyout." I let the silence hang in the air. Let him squirm. "Fine," he snapped. $250. "But you better wire the money by next week." "Don't worry," I said. "You'll get it." Click. I didn't feel good about it, not exactly. But I didn't feel bad either. It wasn't revenge yet. It was just balance. But then Evelyn called. "Mark," she said, "your father's already been contacting lawyers. He's trying to challenge the will on the grounds of diminished capacity." "Of course he is," I muttered. "I've got everything covered," she continued. "But you should be ready. This isn't just about money to him. This is about power." That's when it hit me. He didn't care about the money. He cared about the image. About the control. He needed people to believe he was the grieving husband, the noble father, the one holding the family together. That's why he tried to silence me. That's why he never let Mom speak. And that's why I had to make sure the truth went farther. It was time for the world to see everything. The fake family man routine. Done. The selfless son act Aaron was clinging to. Over. I spent the next few nights gathering everything, emails, texts, screenshots of Aaron's Instagram captions about family strength that he posted from rooftop bars. And then, the voice recording. I hadn't told anyone this, not even Evelyn, but I had one more recording. A second one. The day before Mom slipped into her final coma, she made me record her again. I didn't ask questions. I just pressed record and held the mic near her mouth while she whispered with her last scraps of strength. That second recording. It wasn't just a goodbye. It was a warning. If they try to take this from you, Mark, don't let them. They had their chance to love me. And they failed. I uploaded it to a private video with subtitles and time-stamped hospital records in the background. Then I created a Google Drive folder titled Lorraine Miller's Truth and uploaded every document Evelyn had given me. The will. The insurance changes. The visitation logs from the hospital. It was all there. I wasn't going to post it right away. But I had it. And if they tried to drag me through court or slander my name in public, I'd make sure the world heard Mom's voice again. Only louder this time. I wasn't a lawyer. I wasn't a public speaker. Hell, I wasn't even that tech-savvy. But I'd learned one thing from the roads I drove. Sometimes the best way to fight a bully is to show them you're not afraid to take them head-on, no brakes, full throttle. And I was ready. Let them come. To be continued in Part 5, Execution Begins. I thought Dad and Aaron would back off once the truth was out. I underestimated how desperate men can get when the masks come off. 3 days after Mom's funeral, I received a letter from their attorney, an official, intent to challenge the will, on the grounds of coercion and diminished capacity. They claimed I had undue influence over Mom during her final weeks. That I had isolated her. That she wasn't in her right mind. It made me sick. The woman who remembered every birthday in the family, even that of our second cousins, was somehow too confused to decide what to do with her own life. No. I wasn't going to let this happen. I forwarded the letter to Evelyn. She was calm as ever. "They're bluffing," she said. "They're trying to pressure you into a settlement. But we have every document in order. Witnesses. Medical records. Audio. This will is bulletproof. Still, I wasn't about to sit and play defense. I knew their tactics: drag things out, stir up whispers in the family, wear me down emotionally until I just give up. But I had something they didn't: the truth, and time. So, I took action. I called a local journalist. Not a tabloid monger, an investigative reporter named Diane Navarro who ran a respected blog about corruption and family court injustices. She'd once written about a woman who exposed her wealthy husband's abuse in court through secret recordings. That story blew up. I pitched her mine. She asked me one question: do you have proof? I emailed her the link to the folder, Lorraine Miller's Truth. 2 hours later, she called back. "Mark, this isn't just a story. This is a reckoning." We arranged to meet the next day. I sat down with her for an interview in Mom's old kitchen, now mine, at the very table where Mom used to sip chamomile tea. I showed Diane everything: the tapes, the hospital logs, even the text messages from Aaron after the funeral. She asked if I wanted my name on it. I didn't hesitate. Let them know it's me. The story went live within 72 hours. Silenced Son exposes family's greed at mother's funeral, the tape that changed everything. It didn't take long to explode. Local news stations picked it up. Bloggers started reposting the audio clips. A YouTube channel used Mom's voice over soft piano music in a dramatic animated story. Reddit threads popped up dissecting every detail. And the comments? People didn't just sympathize. They were furious. Who TF takes selfies at their dying mother's bedside? I'd die of shame if I were that brother. This man did what most of us wish we had the courage to do. And then came the blowback, for them. Dad's old golf buddies started texting him. Aaron's firm, one of those pristine finance companies with ethics charters, got flooded with tweets and DMs linking the article to his LinkedIn profile. He went private within hours. But I wasn't done. I called Dad and Aaron together through a scheduled Zoom meeting. Evelyn joined. I told them clearly, "I'm buying your half of the house. I'll wire the full $250,000 today. After that, I don't want another phone call, email, or legal threat from either of you." Dad's jaw locked. He was steaming. But Evelyn stepped in before he could speak. "If you decline, we'll see you in court." The article already laid out what a jury would hear. "And we're more than ready to subpoena every hospital staffer who ever saw you stroll in for 10 minutes and leave." Aaron mumbled, "This is extortion." "No," I said. "This is justice." They signed the documents 2 days later. Just like that, the house was mine. Free and clear. I walked through it room by room that night, touching the doorframes like I was learning the place for the first time. It didn't feel haunted by memories anymore. It felt clean. Light. Like Mom had finally taken a deep breath and let go. Then I got a call from an unknown number. It was Aaron. His voice was hollow. "Are you happy now?" he said. "You ruined everything. Everyone's talking. My job's on the line." I didn't say anything. "Dad's drinking again. He says you destroyed this family." "No," I replied. "He did that. You helped him." He laughed bitterly. "What now, Mark? You gonna sue us next?" I sighed. "No. I'm done with revenge. I've already won." And then I hung up. Because I finally realized something. The best revenge isn't fire and fury. It's silence. It's peace. It's watching your enemies scramble to fix a mess you never made while you sit quietly in the home they once thought you were too small to inherit. To be continued in Part 6, Twist and Reversal. 2 months passed. The media storm calmed. The story faded from the trending charts. People moved on, as they always do. But I didn't. I stayed in the house. Mom's house. My house now. I repainted the kitchen walls a soft pastel blue, her favorite color. Replaced the broken cabinet doors Dad never bothered to fix. Framed a photo of her standing in the backyard garden, sunlight in her hair, and hung it in the hallway. Every night, I'd sit in her old chair by the window and sip the same chamomile tea she used to brew. And for the first time in my life, I felt whole. But peace, I've learned, often invites a final storm. One Friday evening, Evelyn called me with a voice I hadn't heard since this all began, urgency. "Mark," she said. "There's something you need to know." She'd just received a call from a contact at the county courthouse. Dad had filed a quiet petition, separate from the will challenge. It was a claim on the house, buried under an obscure clause from a previous property agreement tied to a refinanced loan Mom and Dad signed 15 years ago. A technicality. He was trying to reclaim partial ownership. Evelyn sounded pissed. He didn't have a leg to stand on in court. But this? It's clever. Slippery. And if we don't act, a judge could freeze the title until it's resolved. I couldn't believe it. After all this, after Mom's voice was heard by the world, after I'd bought out his share legally and in writing, he was still coming for more. Not for love. Not for closure. Just control. I sat on the porch that night, eyes fixed on the garden where Mom used to plant tomatoes. And I realized. He hadn't come for me. He never did. He came for the memory of who he used to be. The respectable husband. The head of the household. The man who got to decide everything. But that image shattered the day Mom spoke through that recorder. And now, in desperation, he was trying to claw it back any way he could. That night, I called Evelyn and said, "I want to go public again." She hesitated. "You sure?" "Yes. But this time, I want people to see everything. Not just what he did to Mom. What he's doing now." We gathered every piece of the case, the new petition, the old property documents, the buyout receipts, the audio, the hospital logs. And I called Diane Navarro again. She was stunned. "I didn't think there was more," she said. "There's always more when you're dealing with someone who can't stand to be powerless." This time, we did it differently. A follow-up feature. A short documentary-style video, Beyond the Grave, When Greed Doesn't Let Go. It dropped on a Monday morning. Within hours, it was everywhere. TikTok stitched it. Reddit reshared it. The original story started trending again, only now it had a second chapter. Commenters exploded. "This man's dad is still trying to take his dead wife's house. Disgusting. Bro, someone get this Mark guy a medal. Or a Netflix deal. You can't keep a good man down, especially when Mom raised him right." But what I didn't expect, was the letter. It came in the mail. No return address. Just my name, scribbled in rushed cursive. Inside was a single folded page. "You win." That was it. No signature. But I knew the handwriting. It was Dad's. Later that week, Evelyn confirmed, he'd withdrawn the petition. Aaron stopped responding to texts and deactivated his LinkedIn. And just like that, silence. But it wasn't satisfying. Not like I thought it'd be. I didn't dance around the house. I didn't call Diane or post a triumphant video. I just sat on the couch with Mom's photo on the coffee table, and whispered, "It's over." Except, it wasn't. Not quite. Because something happened next that flipped the final script in a way I never expected. A woman knocked on my door. I didn't recognize her at first. She looked about my age, soft gray streaks in her black hair, a nervous smile on her lips. "Are you Mark?" she asked. "Yes." She held out a manila envelope. "I think this belongs to you." Inside were old letters. Dozens of them. Addressed to Mom. Written over decades. Some from her high school friends. Some from a sister I'd never heard of. And one, just one, titled, "For Mark, when he's ready." It was written in Mom's unmistakable handwriting. I didn't open it until after the woman left. I needed a moment. Inside, she told me everything. About how she'd started writing letters to me in secret when I was 15, after Dad yelled at me for failing algebra. How she'd kept every photo I drew, every report card I was afraid to show. How she'd opened a small account in my name without telling Dad, saving scraps from her grocery budget in case I ever needed to get out. "I always knew you'd be the one who stayed," she wrote. "But I also knew they'd try to erase you. That's why I saved every part of you. Because you saved every part of me." I sat there for a long time, the letter pressed to my chest. And then I did something I hadn't done in years. I cried. Not from pain. But from release. To be continued in Part 7, Final Justice or Redemption. I read Mom's letter over and over again until the ink smudged from my tears. Every word felt like a thread stitching something back together inside me, something I didn't even realize had been torn apart for so long. She hadn't just seen me. She had prepared for this. For me to survive. For me to thrive. For me to win. And now. I had. But what do you do after winning a war you never wanted to fight? You rebuild. I used the life insurance money not for revenge, but for restoration. I paid off the mortgage. I renovated the guest room, where Mom spent her final months, into a quiet library filled with all the books she loved, romance novels, gardening guides, a worn cookbook with her handwriting in the margins. And I went back to work. Not full-time, not like before. I still drove routes, but I stayed close to Tacoma. I was no longer running away from anything. I was home. The internet eventually moved on. The videos stopped trending. The comments died down. People forgot. But I didn't. Every evening, I made tea, sat in Mom's kitchen, and played music from her old cassette deck. One day, a card came in the mail. No envelope. Just a postcard with a picture of a lake, Lake Chelan, one of the places I once told Mom we'd go when she got better. On the back were 3 words. "I'm proud, always." I don't know if someone sent it as a tribute, or if it was something Mom had prearranged. But it didn't matter. I took it as her final blessing. Then something happened that sealed the ending to this story in a way I never could have planned. A local high school teacher reached out. She'd read the article, seen the documentary, and wanted to invite me to speak to her senior class during their unit on legacy and truth. I said yes. I stood before a group of 17 and 18-year-olds and told them about a quiet woman named Lorraine, and her truck-driving son who loved her more than anything. I told them how the truth can be buried, but not forever. I told them about courage that doesn't look like shouting, it looks like standing your ground while everyone tells you to sit down. And when I finished, there was silence. Then a single student raised his hand and asked, "If you could go back and change anything, would you?" I thought about it. The pain. The betrayal. The sleepless nights and the courtroom threats. I looked down for a moment. Then I said, no. Because in the end, I didn't just find justice for my mother, I found myself. And that was the real inheritance. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.